Romanian President Nicolae Ceausescu is giving a speech to a crowd of loyal supporters. However, in just 72 hours, Ceausescu and his wife Elena would be exiled from the country and executed live on television for the whole world to see. Nicolae Ceausescu would find early success in Romanian politics during his rise to power in March of 1965, spearheading a wave of liberalization in Romania that at the time was unheard of in the Eastern Bloc, going on to do the unthinkable and dislocating itself from the USSR's direct control, opting for a more independent and self-sufficient government and country, going as far as to openly defy the Soviet government by refusing to participate in the invasion of the Czech SSR, and proudly criticizing the Soviet government, further pushing the envelope by becoming closer to the West through various trade deals, as well as industrializing Romania to historic levels, easing press censorship, and reducing the country's peasant class from 78% in 1940 to 49% in 1971. By all accounts, Ceausescu was ahead of all the other Eastern Bloc countries in seemingly every way and well respected by the Western powers. In 1974, Ceausescu would show a darker side of his reign by introducing an executive presidency position within the government. If elected to this position, Ceausescu would now hold total power and control in Romania for 5 years. As you would assume, Ceausescu was elected to this position shortly after he introduced it. Ceausescu would spend the rest of his presidency fighting political criticisms, cracking down on strikes, and eliminating his rivals in quote-unquote accidents or premature diseases. Suspected to have paid doctors to give his rivals 5-minute-long chest x-rays, resulting in many union leaders and activists to develop cancers much sooner than they naturally would have. However, he still retained a majority of support in his country, but the veil was slowly beginning to lift as the Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc began to lose stability and crumble. In early December of 1989, protests would break out throughout Romania. The biggest and most threatening protest to him was in the city of Timisoara. Refusing the protesters' demands, on December 17th, the order was given to the police and military to open fire on the demonstrators, resulting in many men, women, and children to be injured or killed. As tension and discontent grew, Ceausescu decided to hold a rally in the city square in order to quell the protesters and to illustrate he had more support than what many believed. However, what strange is the crowd being shown was not real. The crowd consisted of a small minority of loyal supporters in the front row, seen awkwardly clapping and cheering, while the rest were either hired and paid to be there or forced to be there. Even more bizarre was the fact that the cheering was fake as well. Loudspeakers blasted sounds of ecstatic cheering and applause for Ceausescu, even including fake chants, meaning the real rally was near pin drop silent, all in an attempt to make this seem more organic and enthusiastic. Just 8 minutes into his speech, echoing sounds of chants and screams could be heard, cutting through the loudspeakers. Before Ceausescu could finish his speech, an even bigger crowd of anti-government protesters stormed the rally and began to shout down Ceausescu, laughing, jeering, and heckling him so badly he was unable to continue his speech, forcing him and his wife to retreat inside. This would be the second to last time both were televised, the last being their execution. Following the failed rally, Ceausescu and his wife were trapped inside the Central Committee building by an ever-increasing mob outside. In order to not face the mob, Ceausescu demanded a helicopter be chartered to the building where they could flee due to his collapsing regime. Romania now plunged into anarchy. The only defense was the military. However, to Ceausescu's dismay, soldiers began defecting en masse to the revolutionary side, writing him off completely. Still desperate to cling on to power, Ceausescu and Elena attempted to flee to a town with a military garrison that was sympathetic and could protect them. First fleeing to the town of Snagov, where the military commander denied his request for asylum, calling him a lost cause. Their second attempt was dashed by an announcement. All flights in Romania are to be grounded, effective immediately. Fearing interception by jets, the pilots abandoned the helicopter outside of the town of Targoviste, alongside Ceausescu and Elena, leaving them behind with 2 bodyguards to fend for themselves. The group hijacked a car and attempted to flee the country. only to be detained and arrested by the military shortly thereafter. On December 25th, Christmas morning, the couple would face trial for their crimes against their people. During this trial, a list of criminal charges were brought to the couple with little to no evidence cited. Ceausescu denied these allegations and protested for an appeal. This was rejected. In a very brief trial, both Ceausescu and Elena were found guilty of all of their crimes. The sentence was death, effective immediately. Futile attempts were made to object to the sentence, but this fell on deaf ears. The couple was restrained and marched out into the freezing Christmas morning. Before them stood a firing squad. Before any final words could be said, they were shot and killed. Lying lifeless on the snowy ground, where they would be buried side by side in simply marked graves. In just 3 days, a 20-plus year regime came crashing down, marking the end for Romania's communist dictatorship, as well as going down in history as the most widely televised and broadcasted Soviet-era regime collapse. Romanian people witnessed the execution on TV just 3 days after it was filmed, and the trial was released shortly thereafter. Ironically, shortly after their deaths, Romania passed a law banning the death sentence as a capital punishment, that Ceausescu and Elena would be the last to receive the death penalty in Romania. So in just 3 short days, a man once seen as untouchable is now reduced to a lifeless corpse, buried in a shallow grave alongside his wife.